So I actually started out with intermittent fasting. And looking back, that was sort of the real change that got me going because it helped me break my cycle of food dependence, which was pretty bad at that point. And I was able to start kind of taking a little bit more of a intelligent look at what happened to me in my body when I ate food, and kind of making that, disassociating the like, oh, you need this, with like, oh, what will actually help me and improve my day, and my overall life. From there, I kind of started taking baby steps. I didn't really give up anything entirely, but I just sort of started changing the balance of what was on my plate. Um, and I started realizing, like, hey, adding more plants does taste good, and it doesn't just taste good, it kind of feels good too. Um, and the weight loss sort of came steadily from there. Okay, so for some context, I grew up in New Orleans. Amazing food, the best music, lots of booze, as we always say. And we get started with all three a lot earlier than 21. It's just the way things are there. Now, my mom was actually a huge plant advocate, and in my family, she was always like, "Hey, eat food, mostly plants, not too much." I forget who that quote's from, but it was a pretty common piece of advice that we would try, kind of try to stick to. Now, when I got to college, and immediately after college, and I didn't have mom's home cooked meals, sort of the stress of being at a difficult college, um, really it pushed me from sort of loving food and liquor to sort of relying on food and liquor to kind of get me through the day. I started getting kind of this weird, profound, proudness of how much food I could eat. And since I was super active, I was still super active at the time. We're talking hitting the gym a bunch, boxing, playing on the soccer team. I kind of thought I could do whatever I wanted. And I had gained about 20 pounds by the time I got to the end of college, maybe even a little bit more. But I kept telling myself it was only muscle mass, and that I was just getting super swole and jacked, like brr. But yeah, and those habits that I formed in college, happened and kept going as I left the country and moved to Costa Rica, where I had a really, really stressful job again. And I basically ate and drank like I was trying to break records. Because I was trying to make myself feel better. Like that was how I made myself feel better, was eating a decadent amount of food. But I was like, I'm a hoss. I can lift 300 pounds in the gym. I can, I'm a big guy. Like, and so that was sort of a process of like, oh, well, if I'm good in the gym, then I can, obviously all this weight is muscle. And so I kept ignoring all the weight I was putting on. And even when I was actually working for the Mastering Diabetes team, I joined them in 2020. I was part of their content team. I was working for them, and I was still ignoring all the weight I was putting it on. I do remember it was sort of a funny situation. Like I'd write articles about, help write articles about the Mastering Diabetes method, and what, I knew what was the right things to be doing. And, as I will tell you, it's like there's very few people who know the method as in and out outside of them, and the coaches as myself. I was like, helped write a ton of the articles. And so I'd finish an article of that, and then I'd send a photo to Cyrus and Robbie of a plate of 18 chicken wings and a pound of French fries. No lie, like I literally would send them pictures of that and be like, hey, I can do whatever I want because I'm super, I'm me, I'm better than it, because I'm strong, whatever. I think we all have that a little bit when it comes to kind of getting past our vices, and I definitely had it. I thought I was different, and if I just worked hard enough, I could outwork what I was eating. Thank God for Mama again coming in clutch. A year ago on a family trip, so this was in 2021, she told me she was getting a little concerned about where my weight was going. And to me, that was a shocker because I was like, I'm super fit. I can lift 300 pounds. But I'd gotten up to about 215 pounds then, which is about 50 pounds more than when I'd entered college. And I can tell you for sure that was not all muscle, as you can see from some of the photos of me on that trip. And it happens gradually, and you don't realize it. But next thing you know, you just kind of steadily increasing in the weight. And yeah, it had gotten to a pretty bad point. I started out intermittent fasting. I did a 16/8 from 9 p.m. to 1 p.m. the next day. And I started drinking tea all the time, like vanilla tea, hibiscus tea, any sort of infusion tea. Wasn't a big fan of green tea. Anyway, but it was rough at first because I was so used to that, just like sweet, like big smoothie, or like, I'd eat a cold pizza to start the day. Because I needed food to feel good and to kind of jolt me. And finally, that intermittent fasting of like being able to hold it off, and then starting my body slowly getting used to it and realizing, okay, you've been relying on food every 3 meals, over the course of a day for the past 6 years. You can handle a meal. You can handle a little bit longer without food, and it kind of helped me break that cycle of dependence. I would call it borderline food addiction, and it really helped me start to understand what was happening to my body. So after a couple months, we get into Christmas, I ballooned back up because it was 3 weeks home in New Orleans, and I was just like, well, if I'm again, I was like, if I'm intermittent fasting and I'm active, there's no way that I can possibly be gaining weight. And next thing I knew, I was at 215 again, and I was like, okay, I really, really need to assess more than just the schedule in which I eat. I was hesitant, of course. So I really, I hate the idea of giving anything up. I'm really not like that scares the bleep out of me, but. So I started taking baby steps. I didn't give anything up entirely because I knew that if I tried to quit wings and fries and steaks and wine and whiskey and beer, I would just give up. Like I knew I just couldn't handle it. And still today, I haven't given them up entirely because I'm still a New Orleans boy at heart, and I haven't quite, I just can't. Like, and it's not that I can't. It's that I don't want to. And right now, it's like I knew that there were changes I could make to moderate and to do those things, scale them down without removing them completely, and that was less scary for me. So I did change up the balance of what was on my plate, though. I had a few staples that I used to go through over the course of the week, and I just started adding a vegetable or a fruit or a plant of any type, mushrooms, carrots, broccoli, anything, just like adding it, just a side vegetable, or another side vegetable, or a slice of fruit beforehand, just adding more flavor. And, vegetables fill you up in such a good way that, pretty soon I was eating, 2 vegetables in one steak rather than 2 steaks in one vegetable. I would have a few wings and a side salad and maybe some carrots and hummus, as opposed to 18 wings and a pile of French fries. And for the foodie in me, that was sort of the good compromise. Like, hey, you're just adding more types of flavors. Isn't that great? And I was adding more types of variety and more interesting kinds of flavors. And I was like, oh, this is actually better than just eating a mountain of beige food, which is what I was doing. And I would just do it for comfort. I was just like, chow. I was eating badly made human chow. So after a while, I started realizing, like, hey, it doesn't just taste good. It actually feels good. And being an athlete, being a guy who was constantly playing soccer and swimming and competing in all sorts of competitions, I noticed immediately an effect. Like if I ate 2 bananas for a snack before a workout rather than a bag of chips, I was way better. I started realizing when I woke up in the morning for a Saturday workout that stuffing myself the night before didn't make me feel as good as, eating a balanced meal that was mostly plants with a little bit of extra stuff here thrown in, and it was like, wow, that's a really big difference. And the last change I think that really changed the game for me was getting my drinking under control. I started an app at the beginning of this year called Reframe that I kind of think of as like the Mastering Diabetes of drinking now. It's non-judgmental. It's very informative about the science and the biology and why we drink the way that we do. And it was really sort of they have a helpful tracking thing that helps you take the uncertainty out of it. And really getting my drinking under control kicked everything into hyperdrive. I mean, it wasn't just cutting down on the liquor calories, which definitely helps. It was cutting down on the late night post-party feasts of, again, mountains of beige food. Hangover hamburgers, I used to say, like every time I needed to get my mood back up, just after a late night. And I really started to get things under control. And maybe a month later, I was, noticing like, wow, I'm starting to finish first in a lot of these events in the gym. I can see my fitness improving on a week-to-week basis. I can run longer. I can, I've got more energy. I can ride my bike faster. I'm getting PRs. I started getting comments from people about how I looked great. And then the scale started to show it, and it was really impressive. August 19th, 2021 was my birthday. It was at, a long round of celebration. I hit 215, and then I measured myself a year later, August 19th, 2022, a little over a month ago, and I had hit 184. And recently I'm down to as low as 181. So I'm feeling great, and I mean, that's 35 pounds that I'm not missing. So in terms of, what can I learn from, what do I have to share out of all this? One thing is I was definitely fortunate, I just through my career ended up working at Mastering Diabetes. I had family who supported me, and I had already had really strong exercise habits that I've been fortunate enough to be encouraged to form during childhood. But even with all that, I was still gaining weight. And I think that speaks to how powerful this method is and how powerful your diet is. That without changing too much, and even taking baby steps, what I'd call baby steps in terms of changes, compared to some of the people who have made, wholesale, never touched meat again, never touched liquor again, people who just go all in on it. I couldn't manage that. And even with slip ups, and even with never quite giving up on kind of those favorite vices, I was able to experience, what has for me been a transformation. And I wouldn't even say I'm done learning. I keep coming up with new ways to replace or even remove meat in my favorite dishes. And I've gotten better at cooking to start creating like these awesome Southern or Asian or Italian influenced comfort foods that are now entirely following green light ingredients. And that's awesome because, to the foodie in me, I don't care what's in it as long as it's awesome. And, I even choose different options at restaurants now because those big piles of beige food don't seem quite so attractive as they used to. And that makes it so that on the occasional trip home or the occasional holiday or party, I can still celebrate in moderation. I don't even enjoy eating 18 wings anymore. I don't think I could, or a pound of fries, or competitive drinking. And I know that when those moments pass, I've got a whole system of healthy fundamentals to fall back on. A lot of words to say this. I highly recommend just trying out the method, even if you only take baby steps at first. It's self-fulfilling. You start to feel better immediately. You start to understand your body and how it works. And it's something that I'm going to keep as a part of my life forever, even as a reformed carnivore, hard drinking New Orleans guy. And I'm going to keep with this as long as I'm around. And I'm hoping that because of this, I'm going to be around a little bit longer than I would have been. And I'm loving life a lot more than I was a year ago. I feel better. I look better. I'm more active. I've got the energy to do stuff every day of the week, and it's awesome. I'm incredibly proud of that, and I'm incredibly thankful for discovering this research and finding ways to slowly integrate it into life. So try it.